Hello and welcome to my video. This one is my views on Donald Trump as a American living in Norway. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I came to Norway about 8 years ago, and I came for a job as an IT director in an IT company, mostly financial related. That's most of my background. Before I was working at a major asset manager in America, and the hours were just too much. The demands were too much. No vacation, no life. The story. And so I started looking into Norway, and it took me about 2 years of investigation and making some trips back and forth until I could get myself to move over. That's a whole other story and subject of videos if you're interested later on how I came to Norway and found a job. Because I actually came without any job at all. I had some contacts I built up over 2 years, but I had to still apply and take a risk, quit one job, be jobless for 2 months until I found the next job. Uh, and I became a citizen last year. And I'll give you a brief overview of that. So it takes 7 years, and if you travel a lot outside of the country during that 7 years, then they ask you to make up the time. So it took me 8 years. I had to do 300 hours of Norwegian courses in social studies, 250 hours of language, and 50 hours of social studies. And then I had to pass a language exam, and then I also had to pass the social studies exam, which was about Norwegian history and culture and a lot about government institutions. It's actually a useful subject. They tell you which governments can give you money when you're in trouble, which agencies, I should say, in the government will help you if you're in trouble. And they talked a lot about unions and everything. So it was very useful knowledge, actually. My application process to be a citizen took a very short time because I was one of the first to have their applications done by the new automated system. They use an AI, artificial intelligence, I believe, to score the applications and review the applications. And if you're low risk, then you get done quicker. So I was actually supposed to get it in April of this year, but I got it in June of last year. It was like 9 months ahead of schedule. It only took 3 months instead of a year. So that was pretty cool. That was very cool. So now I'm both a Norwegian and American citizen, which is allowed. Norway passed a law last, I think, 2 years ago, allowing dual nationality, so I don't have to give up my U.S. passport. So yeah, in total, it took 8 years, two exams, a lot of courses, 300 hours of courses, and yeah, a lot of patience, a lot of diligence. It's not easy like America, where you just take a simple exam like who was the first president, and it's like three questions, and it's like you just have to be there, really. You just have to be a warm body. They take it very seriously here. uh, Now the corona situation in Norway, it's they have it, I think, under control compared to most other countries. Last I checked, there were only 74 people on respirators, and 1,000 are available nationwide. So Norway is handling it well. We were off lockdown. We went back to masks and social distancing because of the Omicron outbreak. What it has led me to believe, is that Corona is the pandemic, but I think obesity is making it worse, and obesity is actually probably the real pandemic. Obesity makes it easier for viruses to become serious, to take hold and kill you. So in Norway, they don't have a very high obesity rate, and that's something we'll discuss later on why that is. The government here is very good at giving us transparent data. The economy has been booming. The economy and jobs and everything have actually done very well. And it's, I think, one of the best economies we've ever had. So even when it rains in Norway, the sun still shines, they say. So Norway is doing quite well with Corona. But they have been affected by the European energy crisis. This is kind of a sore spot with me. Norway creates 99% of its electricity by hydroelectric, by dams, which is completely green and renewable energy. And it only costs 12 ora. It's like 15 cents, or no, I think 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour. It's very cheap. And yet we still pay because the Germans shut down their nuclear plants and they're having problems procuring gas. And so Norwegians are paying twice as much for electricity than Germans. I'll post that article below. It's kind of crazy. We're sending the electricity to Germany because they shut down their power, and then we're paying double the price. So there'll be a backlash. I imagine the government here in Norway is scrambling to rectify this because people are noticing. Now, what this video is mainly about, enough about my Norwegian background and the current situation is, yes, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm an American living in Norway. I'm fairly liberal, but I am a Trump supporter, and I'll tell you why. Mainly, it's the borders. I believe America should have a border. People who are anti-border and for this open way with Mexico where people can just walk through unaccounted for, not unregistered, it leads to exploitation. So anti-border people are basically pro-human exploitation and pro-pedophilia. I mean, these kids are being exploited. People are being exploited for work. They don't have social security numbers. That is just wrong. I mean, the only people that benefit from this are probably small restaurants. I don't know who else, landscaping companies or something, but there's got to be more to our country than cheap food and cheap landscaping. I would hope. Labor is the other big one, specifically the H-1B program. I have always felt that was being abused. You can bring a 20 years, Indian programmer, architect, and pay him 60 grand a year in America, and put out when they should be investing in a college graduate, engineering or computer science graduate, they should be investing in them instead. So Trump wanted to make the H-1B minimum salary around $130,000 a year so that people were brought over to truly fill a skill gap and not to do labor arbitrage. Now I think it's not such a big problem. Everyone's getting jobs in America, but this pendulum can swing, and we should have a mechanism in place to make sure that American citizen college graduates get a fair shot at getting a job and getting investment by these companies that have benefited from the American economy and government subsidies and government contracts. So it should be an incentive for them to hire, and that would be by making imported technical labor very expensive. That you're only bringing a guy over from India or China or Russia because they're the best at what they do, or one of the best at what they do, and they're being paid properly. I think these H-1B guys would like to be paid more too, especially when they have 20 years experience and they're only getting a entry level salary in America. But it happens all the time, and it happens by a lot of these big consulting companies. And that's a practice Trump really wanted to put to rest and make it actually more like Norway, where people get paid what they're worth and they get treated properly. So I think last time when I posted this video and I took it down because it was getting popular, and I was afraid people at my work would see it. But now I'm not so afraid because I'm a Norwegian citizen. So I feel like I can speak my mind a little bit more. But the bottom line is America must be first, or the civilized world will finish last. We saw that in Afghanistan. When the Democrats, Joe Biden, pulled out in such a wrong way, a lot of women lost their rights overnight. Everything that was fought for 20 years was just gone. There was a right way and a wrong way to do that. Patriotism was alive and well. Because of patriotism, in the past 250 years, we have voting. We can go out and vote. Granted, the system is probably not perfect, but at least we still have it. We have a right to self-expression. People with different views, gay people, minorities, they don't have to worry about persecution in America. Yes, there's discrimination and things that happen, but it's not institutionalized. And generally, the courts and the system works to rectify these problems, and the system is constantly improving. I can tell you that as a minority, who's grown up and lived in America. You can get around any blocks there are, and things are always getting a little bit better every year. And you have a right to choose and change your religion in America. That's a big one. And people should be proud about that in America. They should be patriotic. It's because of strong patriotism that we got these values in America. However, I'm not going to totally, rail on Democrats or liberals either. Conservatives are quite wrong about socialism, and we need socialism in our country as well as patriotism. But there has to be an American way to do it. In Norway, the government is very good at providing services and things because it's already a very efficiently run government, I believe. A lot of Norwegians may disagree with me, but many of them haven't lived in other countries. I haven't seen government efficiency so good as it is in Norway. But socialism can work in America, but they have to start with doing the taxes and subsidies and incentives right. They can drive behaviors by using taxation, making some things expensive and other things cheaper to get people to choose right and behave in a way that's not self-destructive, and also in a way that makes the government doesn't have to provide this, they can afford the safety net. You know, Also, the government is very good at getting bulk discounts and passing on the savings. We saw that Trump was able to negotiate the price of diabetes medicine, uh, like the way Canada does it. They buy all this medicine in bulk and then they pass on the savings. So it's like it, the Republicans would be angry that if I took a collection from the neighbors for toilet paper. Let's say I'm buying a 4-pack of toilet paper for $4, and I decide instead I want to save money and get that toilet paper instead of $1 roll, 10 cents a roll. So I can go to all my neighbors and collect $1,000 and then go to Costco and buy a pallet of toilet paper, 1,000 rolls for $100, and get it at 10 cents each. And then, granted, my neighbors could pay me a little bit of money, like $200 or something, like, so then it'd be like 12 cents, let's say, just arbitrary numbers. So that 12 cents would be cheaper than the dollar. So the government could be used to do economy of scales and get bulk discounts, on pharmaceuticals, maybe even building materials, whatever. That is something we could leverage the government to do. My experience with high taxes in Norway, you know, is that it sucks, but I am seeing the benefit. The healthcare here is excellent. My asthma medicines are extremely cheap. It's like $2 for an inhaler versus like $80 in America. When I go to do a visit here, it's like $10. No, $30. I'm sorry, yeah, it's like 27 euros, so it's about $30 to do an extensive doctor visit. And this is with tests and everything. Where I think in America that would be $200 or $300. And I don't have to pay a health insurance policy every month. It's taken care of through taxes. My original doctor was, I believe, U.S. educated even. My new doctor is a Syrian refugee who became a Norwegian doctor, and he's quite good. So I am not dissatisfied with the medical care here. I don't have to wait. I can see the doctor within a day or two, general practitioner. There's emergency rooms. Everything works. I don't know why they say that socialized medicine doesn't work. Actually, I think it works better than the private medicine in the U.S. in many ways. I've noticed that when I went to the doctor, they always like try to prescribe health and fitness and look at my habits, and then they will go to medicine later. They're very reluctant to prescribe the medicines here. So when I first came to Norway, I had high blood sugar, and instead of giving me diabetes medicine or whatever, she told me to start jogging and lose some weight. And it was funny when she got the test result, she started screaming at me, "You're going to die." She was a Vietnamese. The nurse who was giving me my results was Vietnamese, and she had that accent. And she was like, "You're going to die. You're going to die. You're fat. You need to lose weight." And she kind of scared the hell out of me. And then 2 months later, I had cut down my sugar and went and started, using more vegetables, eating less meat, and all my numbers were right, and um, they were right. They were right. This was just something that could be fixed by diet and exercise. And that comes to the question like, how should we do healthcare in America? Well, we should take this approach. First, we need to ask, like, why are we going to the doctor in the first place? And I looked up, all the sources are below. The main reasons why we go to a doctor in America is skin disorders is the first reason. Osteoarthritis and joint problems is the second reason. Back problems is the third reason. Cholesterol is the fourth. Upper respiratory conditions, excluding asthma, is like the fifth reason. That's probably like flus and whatever, pneumonia or something like that, chest infections, chest colds, anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. And then number 7 is chronic neurological disorders. Number 8 is high blood pressure. Number 9 is headaches and migraines. And the 10th reason is diabetes. I think 8 out of 10 of these problems could sound like weight and food related. back problems, arthritis. All of this sounds like lifestyle. So tell us, the doctors should be telling us what's making us sick. Why are we getting these problems? They should be having that approach and explain to us that we're getting sick because of lifestyle instead of filling us up with medications. And then we never really correct the problem. We just ease the pain, but we don't really fix the root of the problem. So we should tax, like in Norway, they generally tax these drivers of illness, to fund the system. That's the philosophy. They look at the food and cigarettes and all these other things, alcohol, and say, okay, this is going to make the person sick in the future, and we're going to have to pay for it. So we need to collect the money in advance, and that's the philosophy we should have. And that's why the taxes on um, not only on cigarettes and alcohol, but we need to extend it to different types of foods as well to fund a healthcare system. So we could tax sugar. In Norway, there's a very high sugar tax. People are actually even driving to Sweden to get around it, which is, I kind of disagree. I think Sweden should have the sugar tax too, to make sure that Norwegians are still paying a lot for their sweets. Salt is taxed here, salty foods. White flour, pasta, and bread is expensive here. I don't know if it's taxed or not, but it could be. I know saturated fat, and pork, burgers, hot dogs, fast food is relatively expensive here. That has, I think, a tax of some sort in there. Why it's quite expensive to eat at McDonald's here. It doesn't actually cost that much more to go to a restaurant with decent food than going to McDonald's. It's a very small difference. So a lot of people just choose to pay a little extra and go to a good restaurant. But I think what they could do is exempt grass-fed and free-range meats, that or hunted meats. So we need to have policies, tax policies that favor small family farms, and we need to have tax policy in America that aim to put the feedlots and mass chicken farms out of business and get back to more local farming. We have to give more motivation for people to buy products from the small farmer instead of the corporate farmer who's putting us all in the hospital. Another way we could fix the healthcare in America, see, we have to fix before we can give the care, we have to fix the health and healthcare. Before we can afford care, we have to get the baseline health down. So another way, though, we can fix the cost of medical treatment is to make medical school, nursing school, pharmacy school, med tech school, like x-ray tech and lab tech and all of these educations for free. These educations are almost for free in Norway, or they're heavily subsidized or given very favorable loans. So doctors will behave much differently when they're not in debt. And perhaps I think in America, medical schools, especially if the government's going to be paying for it, should select candidates on a wider background than just academics. They should also be looking at their athletic background. The doctors don't have to be like varsity pro athletes, but they should be in some kind of sports, so that they understand that the body is a machine. I know athletes understand this. I did sports in college and high school, and I was very attuned to what I was eating and how it affected my performance. I don't know. I got away from it later in life, and now I'm back on the sports and nutrition thing. Uh, and there should be some like physical readiness standards to enter medical school, especially if they're going to get it paid for. Being able to run a certain distance and do push-ups and pull-ups, because when you have first-hand experience with sports and nutrition, then it's easier for you to tell other people about it. And you'll always look at that side first. That can this problem be solved with nutrition? Can we fix this with long-term habit changes before filling up a person with medications? And so the net effect of this, by taxing the food that makes us sick and subsidizing, the medical care, or medical education in America, or making it even free, is that free market support forces then would finally kick in. Insurance rates would naturally go down. There'd be less demand for medical care, and there'd be less pressure from doctors to keep you coming back for this treatment, because they're not in debt, so they would rather just see you get healthy quick in the right way, instead of prescribing unnecessary tests and treatments all the time. And insurance rates would just fall by itself. If we cut doctor visits down by 80%, solved 8 out of 10 of those problems, are probably connected to food and exercise. So if we reduce doctor visits, by that much, the insurance rates would go down, and it'd be something people can afford. And to say that this wouldn't work, this is not too far off. I was in the U.S. Navy, active for 4.5 years, and then reserves for another 3.5 years, or something like that. I think a total of 8 years I was in the U.S. Navy. And the doctors in the military, they were very highly educated and they were quite fit. A lot of them had scholarships or studied at that military version of West Point in Maryland. They have a medical school, and a lot of them had scholarships for medical school as well. And they would see a lot more than civilian doctors. And many of them were very athletic and very fit. So they were also, very much pushing the health and fitness. And they had their medical education paid for, and they were given a pretty good rank in the military. But in order to qualify for this military medical care, and to just in general be in the military, you have to meet height and weight and physical readiness standards to get this care. You have to be reasonably fit anyway. So the military medical system, I feel, is like fairly efficient. The doctors did a good job. That was just from my personal experience. They were ready to see you. They were more engaging you about, change this in your diet, change that. So what we can conclude here is that, Americans will have to accept some authority to reap some benefits. If they want to have cheaper health insurance and free emergency room care, that's something I would like to see too. Is that, if we once we get the baseline health in order, then we can start putting in care. Getting some things like the emergency care, so it doesn't bankrupt people. Maybe have a maximum people would pay for medical care, and then they would just take it off on their taxes. If they had to have chronic treatment or something, once we get the baseline health in order, then we can pay for treatment for people who are truly, truly ill and have chronic unsolvable illnesses. So in order to do this, Americans have to accept some authority. They have to be told what to eat through the taxes. That they'll see a Big Mac cost $30, but going to Whole Foods and buying spinach and the brown rice and various vegetables will be like $5 or something. And there should be an aim from the government that the basic foods, would be like $1 a day per household member. Like a cup of brown rice and those foods I mentioned before, vegetables, and grass-fed meats, like 100 grams or something would be like very cheap, and anyone could eat that instead of macaroni and cheese. They should make mac and cheese really expensive to pay for this. They always ask where the money would come from. Make Kraft Foods pay for it, and then the person who would benefit would be the small farmer trying to do the right thing, grow food the right way. So we have to also conclude that government is not the problem. It's rather the inefficiency. Government should be, Trump was big on this, to take the inefficiency out of government. He was very pro big government, and I'm pro big government, because if you don't have big government, then you'll have big corporations telling you what to do. Otherwise, or you'll have big cartels telling you what to do. Like in Mexico, when the government is weak, the cartels fill the void. And in America, where the government is relatively weak, the corporations fill the void, and they can dictate to you. They can just fire you from a job if you don't do what they say or think the way they want you to think, or post on YouTube something they object to. So one of three things is going to run your life: either the government, the corporation, or the cartels. So I would rather have the government, because we have control over that. We can vote, we can write our congressmen, we can protest. Go try protesting at your job and see, especially if you're an American, see what that gets you. Good luck with that, as these Republican people say. We can't force people to do things, but we can drive the right behavior toward using taxes and subsidies. We need to do this. We need to be a little bit more telling people what to do with the food. If we're going to have healthcare in America, the obesity epidemic is now affecting 42% of Americans. So that's creating a lot of depression and joint problems and killing productivity. People are missing days of work. It's a national security issue. The military is having a very hard time finding qualified recruits. I have a link below about that. I think it's a cultural thing. America back in the early 1900s, when they had the first Olympics, we won almost every single gold medal. It's like 72 out of 74 gold medals were won by America. That should be our priority. We should get our country back on track, that we have more pool of athletes, and that Olympic sports, eventually we could, once we fix the health issues and people are not visiting doctors much and the economy is booming and we collect some taxes where we can build big sports complexes so we can bring out athletes, help develop athletes so we're winning all the gold medals. This would be a great boom to patriotism and make people feel proud of their country. I mean, I love it when I see America win in Olympics, whether it's swimming or whatever, running, skiing. I think we had a guy win a gold medal in skiing back in 1980s or something. Snowboarding, it's a great feeling, and I'd like to see America win every single medal, win the Olympics completely. That would be cool. That would really, that would be like a great marketing for a country to bring the best and the brightest over here. We have to also recognize that the food industry is not our friend. We need to drain the swamp and deal with these lobby groups. And that's something Trump wanted to do, is get the lobbyists in check and get these career politicians in check so they're not so influenced by corporations. These corporations have huge amounts of marketing convincing us that mac and cheese and Big Macs are almost good for our health, that they're part of the social norm and part of our tradition. I don't think our founding fathers were eating mac and cheese and chicken McNuggets. They were hunting turkey and eating barley and oats, and they were tough. We're not so tough anymore with all this processed food and all this food industry. The food industry in America is anything but American. If anything, it's a parasite and it's poisoning us. Um, and this whole view that libertarians have, that you should be able to do what you want and the government can't tell me what to do. We are the government. We're all living in this society together. So it's like on the roads, you can't just drive the way you want. If you're driving fast and drunk, and you can kill some kids. It's the same way. Your health affects people around us, affects the national productivity. And I spend a lot of time in Ukraine. There are people do what they want, and if you look at the apartment buildings over there, everyone's doing something different on the outside, and it ruins the value of the whole building. So this mentality has to stop a little bit. Yes, we need to have freedoms and personal freedoms, but it can't be so extreme that we have anarchy. That will never work. We need to have a little bit of common sense. We belong to a civilized society. America, Norway, Western Europe are civilized societies, and there's rules and there's policies in place to ensure that we survive. If we end up having 100% obesity and everyone hates their country, and we're going to collapse, and then it's going to be the Chinese or corporations or gangs, that'll take over, and people won't like that so much. So remember, we are Americans. We can do really big stuff. And I was told by a Danish guy in an airport one time that America is actually the only country that can do something big. They're the only ones that can pull it together and pull off the big things, like going to the moon on analog technology. It's taken our adversaries and 2 or 3 generations after us to get to the moon, and not even with a human. So America can do really big stuff when they're all together and working together and healthy. It's the only country that can do the big things and innovative things. Uh, I'm going to start a series for moderate Trump supporters, to propose a winning platform, to propose policy that can actually win the middle. Not, I'm kind of in the middle. I think, as you can see, I have a somewhat of a liberal and somewhat of a conservative agenda, but I want to have a purple-pilled series, that appeals to the patriotic Democrats or the progressive Republicans. That's how I classify myself. If I tell Democrats, I'm a Democrat, but I'm patriotic. Or if I meet a Republican, I can say I'm a Republican, but I'm very still progressive. I think we have to embrace new technology and new thinking in the future and collectivism a little bit so we can have these freedoms endure. So if that's interesting to you, like and subscribe to my series. I have many experiences and ideas. I'm living living in 3 different worlds now. I'm American. I live in Norway, but I also sometimes I'm in Ukraine, doing work and business here as well. So I have a lot of perspective to share, and I'd like to get out there. But anyway, thank you for watching my video, and hope to see you soon.